These midterm campaigns are in high gear. I think we'll be able to show you the scene in the crucial swing state of Ohio over the weekend. This was a rally for one of the Republican Party's key candidates. You see Jim Jordan talking. J.D. Vance was the star of this rally, the Wall Street investor and author who spent years publicly warning the Republican Party about what he said was the danger of Trump, who he once likened to a potential fascist leader in America. Vance then recounted, he embraced Trump, he got his endorsement, then he got the nomination for the Senate race, and that may all sound familiar for today's Republican Party. What is different in this rally is how Vance, a Yale graduate, sat by as Donald Trump used the Ohio midterm rally to go quite a bit farther than he has before in his cultish alliance with this dangerous, sometimes amorphous group called QAnon, which has consolidated its power on the extreme far right by pushing lies that, frankly, might at times sound so bizarre and absurdist that you could underestimate how serious they are and what a following they're building. I'm not going to try to repeat, or let alone amplify all of them, but among them is the claim that certain Hollywood actors and certain Democrats are actually some sort of secret pedophile group aligned with the actual Satan, or that they are also cannibals who eat children. It goes on like that. I'm not going to do much more of it for you tonight, but I'll tell you why this is the top story. What does all that have to do with, say, these midterm campaigns, other than maybe villainizing a few Democrats? Well, one of the theories is that Trump will lead this sort of cataclysmic battle against some of those forces. And by the way, there are many different versions and iterations of these conspiracy theories. It matters in many ways. You may recall right after Donald Trump was elected, a gunman opened fire in a Washington, D.C. restaurant under the deranged belief that that act would somehow help children allegedly enslaved there in a plot linked to Hillary Clinton. It was at times called Pizzagate. So this is national news now, starting this week. But you need the backstory I just gave you to understand, I think, the full danger of this story. The backstory is that the themes and emblems and sometimes secret references are an embrace of this political propaganda. And as I showed you, it ranges from bananas, if you hear about these ideas and these theories on, say, an internet comment thread, to profoundly dangerous when you see armed people walking the streets believing this stuff, acting on this stuff. Now, Trump used this new rally to directly embrace this. It was very clear, and it was clear to the Trump fans on site at the rally. And we could tell it was planned. For example, Trump and his aides used rally music that matched a QAnon theme song, as the New York Times reports, which then prompted the crowd to go into a bizarre gesture that you see here. You might not know what you were watching, or it might look like other terrible gestures throughout history, but this is the crowd raising single fingers in the air, citing the one in the QAnon song that was played by the former president at the rally. The New York Times continues in their report to say it was this rally that I'm telling you about is the first time in the memory of some Trump aides that they had such a display at the rally. They know all about QAnon, but it is now in the House. And these people that I just showed you with their hands up, they're in the loop. They're in sync with the propaganda and the hand gestures, the icons. And Trump told them their journey had only just begun.
My fellow citizens, this incredible journey we're on together has only just begun, and it is time to start talking about greatness for our country again.
Every hand you see hoisted as he addresses them is a person who either knows exactly what they're referencing or is joining the crowd. And the crowd, the groupthink, the mob mentality, the herd, that is all a part of this. Now, as I give you this news, our top story tonight, if you or someone watching is a skeptic, you might say, these developments sound like things that may not completely involve Trump. An aide could pick music. Crowds will do what crowds do. A skeptic might say, well, it's not like Trump is out here wearing a QAnon pin and directly, personally engaging the conspiracy theories. That's what a skeptic might say. But he is. You can see Trump literally wearing a QAnon pin with those words on the bottom of the screen. The storm is coming here on a recent Donald Trump post, which you might not see if you're not on Trump's social media platform. The AP has summed up Donald Trump's recent activities and actions here with the headline that Trump is openly embracing and amplifying QAnon conspiracy theories. The examples are piling up. There's the more personal visual embrace after Trump posted this other barrage of QAnon-related material just last month. Now, let me tell you, there are plenty of recent Trump posts and statements and rallies that we do not choose to report on, that we do not find newsworthy. And if you don't want to know what they were up to in Ohio, this is a free country. If you're watching in America, you could tune out. But to be informed heading into these midterms, it is worth knowing what the choices are. And this is not just some story about Donald Trump. It does involve him. But right now on the ballot, it's a story about the mainlining of weaponized lies and hate in the Republican Party and the government of the United States by people who know better, like J.D. Vance, who's on the ballot in these midterms. And it's proven that he knows better because he told us he knew better when he wrote a whole book warning against exactly this. He wrote at times eloquently about the dangers not only of Donald Trump as a person and a symptom, but he warned about the wider problems of how hate and hard times and poverty can create a brew where people are focused on falsehoods and blame because of the pain they may actually really feel in their lives. Tonight, here's the bad news. This level of lying and propaganda is associated with attacks on democracy and the rise of authoritarian movements. Here's the good news. Those kind of movements usually need lies because when the truth is out, they're widely opposed. Most people do not want to live under repressive regimes or have to put up with movements that are based on ending democracy or having some MAGA big government system make choices for you, for the rest of us, while lying to you with some made-up, ridiculous, bananas, but at times dangerous stories about the phantom pedophile enemies, stories designed to scare you into submission so you have less freedom and less liberty and a far worse life. When most people see that truth, separate from a lot of other political divisions we still have, the vast majority of people do not choose to live under those kind of people and systems. The truth still matters, but it must be reported and defended.